안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. Welcome to Open Infra Summit Asia.
OCPIC APEC Summit 2024.
환영합니다, 여러분.
환영합니다.
네. 평일 오전 수원까지 오시느냐 정말 고생 많으셨습니다. 아침 드셨나요? 아침 드셨나요? 네.
안 드신 것 같은데요.
참고로 이 키노트 시간에는 동시 통역이 제공이 됩니다. 그래서 혹시라도 동시 통역기를 안 가져오신 분들은 저기 좌측에서 동시 통역기를 배부하고 있으니까요. 지금이라도 늦지 않았습니다. 동시 통역기 가져오시면은 더 키노트 세션 내용을 정확하게 들으실 수 있을 겁니다. 네. 자, 이제 그럼 본격적으로 오프닝을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 이번 서밋은 오픈소스 기반의 인프라스트럭처를 다루는 두 프리미어 오픈소스 커뮤니티인 오픈인프라 아시아와 OCP APEC 커뮤니티가 함께 만든 서밋입니다. 먼저 오픈인프라 아시아 그리고 OCP APEC에 대해서 처음 들어보셨을 분들을 위해서 저희가 간단하게 오픈인프라 아시아가 무엇인지 소개해드리도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 오픈인프라 아시아입니다. 오픈인프라 아시아는 오픈인프라 파운데이션의 서포트를 받고 있는 싱가포르에 거점을 두고 있는 리저널 허브입니다. 리저널 허브라는 단어를 처음 들어보시는 분들도 계실 텐데요. 이 리저널 허브의 역할은 아시아 지역에서의 오픈소스 인프라스트럭처가 가지고 있는 문제를 파악을 하고요. 그 문제를 해결하기 위한 여러 가지 활동을 하면서 커뮤니티를 강화하는 데 목적을 가지고 있습니다. 실제로 오픈인프라 재단의 40% 이상의 멤버분들이 바로 아시아인이고요. 아시아 지역은 오픈 인프라스트럭처의 시장이 가장 빠르게 변화하고 있는 장소 중에 하나입니다. 그래서 아시아의 오픈 인프라스트럭처를 고도화하고 피드백을 빠르게 모아서 그것을 글로벌 오픈소스 커뮤니티에 전달하기 위해서 리저널 허브라는 것을 만들고 오늘의 이 서밋은 아시아 지역에서 발생하는 여러 가지 문제들과 우리의 고민거리들, 우리의 기술력을 공유하는 첫 번째 리저널 허브입니다. 리저널 서밋입니다. 이런 리저널 허브는 크게 아시아와 유럽 이렇게 두 군데를 가지고 있고요. 올해는 오픈인프라 아시아에서 오픈인프라 서밋 아시아만 진행이 됩니다. 작년 6월 밴쿠버 서밋에서 아시아 지역의 모든 유적으로 오거나이저들과 그 다음에 아시아 국가를 대표하는 기업분들이 모여서 앞으로 오픈인프라 아시아가 나아가야 될 방향과 미래의 모습을 함께 나누는 시간을 가졌고 오픈인프라 서밋 밴쿠버 키노트 시간에 공식적으로 오픈인프라 아시아를 소개하는 시간을 가지기도 했습니다. 그리고 이번 서밋은 말씀드렸듯이 오픈인프라 아시아가 진행하는 첫 번째 리저널 서밋입니다. 자, 다음으로는 OCP APEC에 대해서 김정수 대표님께서 설명해 주시겠습니다.
오늘은 시작하기 전에 조금 특별한 시간을 가지려고 합니다. 이번 APEC 행사를 같이 준비하셨던 OCP 재단의 에릭 리델링께서 지난 6월에 갑자기 돌아가셨습니다. 특히 FTS 좌장을 맡아주시기로 했었는데 그의 상실이 OCP 커뮤니티에서는 큰 상실이었고 큰 슬픔으로 다가왔습니다. 그는 훌륭한 아버지였고 훌륭한 엔지니어였고 무엇보다 훌륭한 볼런티어였습니다. 이 자리를 빌어 잠시 여러분들과 함께 에릭 박사님을 추모할 시간을 가지려고 합니다. 자리에 계신 분들은 한 5초 정도 같이 묵념을 해주시면 감사하겠습니다. 묵념. 네, 감사합니다. 에릭 박사님과 그 가족들을 위해 격려의 박수를 좀 부탁드리겠습니다. 그리고 이 자리를 위해 방문하신 OCP 재단과 보드 멤버분들을 소개해드리려고 합니다. OCP APEC을 이뤄내기 위해서 재단뿐만 아니라 많은 자원봉사분들이 수고를 해주셨습니다. 여기 방문하신 OCP 재단분들께도 환영의 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 다음으로는 OCP APEC 리더들입니다. 아시아 지역에서 오픈소스 이노베이션을 이뤄내기 위해 많은 분들이 힘써주고 계신데 오늘은 특히 타이완에서 알렉스님 그리고 싱가포르에서 웨이청님께서 방문해 주셨습니다. 무엇보다 올해부터 삼성전자의 김병수님께서 코리아 대표를 맡아주시게 되었습니다. 그 아시아 이펙을 위해서 또 봉사하시는 분들께도 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. OCP는 오래전부터 하드웨어, 소프트웨어 코디자인 전략을 취하고 있습니다. 오픈 이노베이션은 소프트웨어 온리, 하드웨어 온리로 이루어지지 않고 그 두 가지 요소가 융합이 돼서 인프라스트럭처 혁신을 이뤄낼 수 믿기 때문입니다. 이런 의미에서 오픈 인프라와 OCP의 아시아에서의 융합은 큰 의미가 있고 그런 혁신이 아시아 지역에서 일어나기를 기대하고 확신합니다. 감사합니다.
네, 그래서 오늘 이틀 동안 열리는 오픈 인프라 서밋 아시아 OCP 에이펙 서밋에서의 가장 중요한 키워드는 바로 오픈 콜라보레이션입니다. 이제 우리가 오픈 소스 기반의 인프라스트럭처를 이야기할 때 더 이상 하드웨어만, 소프트웨어만 이야기를 할 수가 없습니다. 하드웨어와 소프트웨어를 같이 이야기를 하고 그 둘을 동시에 다뤄야 비로소 오픈 소스 인프라스트럭처라는 것이 만들어지게 되는 것이죠. 그래서 이번 서밋은 그 어디에서도 볼 수 없었던 하드웨어와 소프트웨어를 동시에 경험할 수 있는 서밋입니다. 여러분들이 앞으로 이틀 동안 펼쳐질 서밋 동안 약 190개의 세션을 통해서 이 오픈 콜라보레이션을 경험하실 수가 있게 됩니다. 다음은 아시아 서밋입니다. 그동안 재단에서는 글로벌 서밋 위주로만 진행이 됐었습니다. 하지만 이제부터는 이 지역에서 발생하는 오픈소스 인프라스트럭처의 그런 과제들 그리고 챌린지들을 더 면밀하게 분석하고 그걸 해결하기 위해서 노력하기 위해 이 리저널 서밋을 만들었습니다. 그리고 아까도 말씀드렸듯이 아시아는 이 오픈 인프라 시장이 가장 빠르게 성장하고 있는 그리고 가장 유행하고 있는 곳 중에 하나입니다. 그래서 저희는 이 아시아 커뮤니티 구성원들이 이런 서밋에 쉽게 참여하고 우리의 관심사를 논의를 하면서 서로 협력할 수 있는 장소가 되기를 희망하는 마음에서 이 아시아 서밋을 준비를 했습니다. 다음으로는 커뮤니티 파워드입니다. 이 서밋은 어느 한 기업이 아니고요. 어느 한 재단의 주도가 아니라 코리아 커뮤니티의 구성원들이 만들어낸 서밋입니다. 이 이틀의 행사를 위해서 오픈 인프라 코리아 유저 그룹과 OCP 코리아 커뮤니티에 있는 많은 운영진 분들이 자신의 본업을 하면서 자신의 개인 시간을 할애하면서 자원봉사로 약 1년이 넘는 시간 동안 준비를 해주셨습니다. 이 자리를 빌어서 긴 시간 동안 자신의 시간을 희생해서 커뮤니티를 위해 자원봉사해 주신 운영진 분들께 한번 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. 네, 그래서 뭐 준비 과정이나 아니면 운영 과정에서 미흡한 부분이 보이시더라도 너른 양해 부탁드리겠습니다.
네, 오늘 행사 진행에 대한 안내를 잠시 드리겠습니다. 저희가 에이펙 서밋을 진행하면서 어려웠던 중에 하나가 언어 장벽입니다. 그래서 이 언어 장벽을 극복하기 위해 이번에는 최초로 AI 통역 서비스를 도입을 했습니다. 프리토에서 좋은 서비스를 제공해서 가능할 수 있었습니다. 여러분들이 브레이크아웃 세션 룸에 가면은 벽에 QR 코드가 붙어 있을 것입니다. 핸드폰으로 그 QR 코드를 스캔을 하시면은 실시간 번역 서비스를 제공합니다. 무엇보다도 앱 다운로드가 필요가 없습니다. 그래서 간편하게 바로 사용할 수 있고 16개국 이상 언어로 통역 서비스를 제공해 주니 많은 이용 부탁드리겠습니다. 다음으로는 스케줄 안내입니다. 오늘 아침까지도 실시간으로 스케줄이 업데이트되고 있습니다. 최신 스케줄 정보는 각 브레이크아웃 세션 룸에 있는 QR 코드를 스캔하시면은 확인하실 수가 있습니다. 웹사이트에 있는 정보가 가장 최신 정보입니다. 네, 다음으로는 밀 쿠폰입니다. 오늘 등록하실 때 모두 밀 쿠폰을 받으셨을 거라고 생각합니다. 밀 쿠폰은 홈페이지에 나와 있는 식당에서 사용할 수 있고 최대 금액이 15,000원입니다. 몇 가지 주의사항을 말씀드리면은 환불이 안 됩니다. 그러니까 10,000원짜리 드시고 5,000원을 환불해 달라고 말씀해 주시면 안 됩니다. 혹시 분실하셨더라도 환불이 안 되니 이 점 유념해 주시기 바랍니다.
네, 그리고 이틀 동안 진행되는 서밋에서 기술 발표 외에도 여러분들이 보다 더 즐겁게 서밋을 즐길 수 있는 두 가지의 추가 세션이 준비가 되어 있습니다. 첫 번째는 토론을 하면서 오픈소스 인프라스트럭처에 대한 이야기를 나눌 수 있는 포럼 세션입니다. 이번 서밋에서는 총 5개의 포럼이 준비가 되어 있고 포럼은 2층 203호에서 진행이 됩니다. 그래서 브레이크아웃 세션도 좋고 중요하지만 커뮤니티잖아요. 그래서 토론을 통해서 서로의 의견을 나눌 수 있는 이런 포럼 세션에도 많이 참여해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 포럼도 AI 통역이 제공이 되지만 아무래도 빠르게 대화를 하다 보니까 원활하지는 않을 수 있습니다. 하지만 영어를 못하더라도 실시간 통역을 통해서 서로 이야기를 나눌 수 있으니까요. 부담 없이 참석해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 다음으로는 직접 오픈소스 인프라스트럭처를 경험할 수 있는 핸즈온 시간입니다. 이번에는 감사하게도 레드햇에서 2개의 핸즈온을 준비를 해주셨고요. 오늘과 내일 각각 1개씩 408호에서 진행이 됩니다. 핸즈온에 대한 참여 신청은 이미 홈페이지에서 받았지만 현장의 상황에 따라서 자리가 여유가 된다면 더 참석하실 수가 있으니까요. 이 시간에 맞게 408호에 가셔서 핸즈온을 즐겨주시면 감사하겠습니다. 자, 다음으로는 우리 모두 안전한 행사를 즐기기 위해서 여러분 모두가 행동 강령이라고 부르는 코드 오브 컨덕트를 지켜주시길 바랍니다. 모두를 존중해 주시고 환영해 주시고요. 서로의 의견이 다르더라도 건설적인 대화를 통해서 서로의 의견을 조율해 나가 주시고 폭력적이거나 불쾌한 언행은 삼가해 주시길 바랍니다. 만약에 불쾌한 상황을 경험하셨다면 아래에 있는 컨택 인포메이션을 통해서 연락을 주시면 각각의 담당자분들께서 적절한 안내를 해주실 예정입니다. 자, 다음으로는 행사장 곳곳에서 개구리를 보실 수 있습니다. 이 개구리의 의미가 혹시 아시는 분 계신가요? 손 한번 들어주시겠어요? 이 개구리의 의미가 아시는 분? 한 분? 네. 이 개구리는 바로 수원의 마스코트입니다. 놀랍죠? 수원의 마스코트가 바로 수원 청개구리라고 하는데요. 이번 서밋의 마스코트도 수원에서 열리는 만큼 저희가 청개구리를 따왔습니다. 감사하게도 인도네시아 유저 그룹의 바유 아진님께서 이 마스코트를 디자인을 해주셨습니다. 이 자리를 빌어서 정말 감사드립니다. 자, 그럼 이제 본격적으로 박수 한번 치고 가겠습니다. 자, 그럼 이제 본격적으로 오픈 인프라 서밋 아시아 OCP APEC 서밋을 시작하겠습니다. 이틀 동안 약 190개 이상의 브레이크아웃 세션이 준비가 되어 있고요.
네, 지금 240분 이상의 연사들이 참여해 주시고 있습니다.
그리고 25곳의 수원사에서 소중한 자원들을 후원해 주셨습니다.
그리고 무엇보다 놀랍게도 30개국 이상에서 방문해 주셨고 1,500명 이상의 분이 등록을 해 주셨습니다.
자, 우리 커뮤니티니까 서로를 환영한다는 의미에서 박수 한번 부탁드립니다. 서로 얼굴 마주보면서 인사도 해주시고요. 안녕하세요, 반갑습니다. 네. 자, 그럼 이제 본격적으로 우리의 첫 번째 키노트 연사를 소개하도록 하겠습니다. Please welcome to the stage to our first keynote speakers. Open Infra Foundation Mark Coiler. Please welcome and please give a big applause. Thank you.
Good morning, Suwon. It is great to be here. I am with the Open Infrastructure Foundation, and my name is Mark Collier. And as you might expect, as the name implies, we build open source software for infrastructure. Pretty simple. We're a nonprofit. We're backed by members all over the world, a massive ecosystem, and some examples of the software that we create are OpenStack, Kata Containers, Starling X, and Zool. And as I said, we have companies all over the world that back the foundation, our strong strategic partners, including our gold and platinum members. And today, we're excited to announce that we have our newest platinum member, Orchestro, right here in Korea. But there's always room for more. So if you would like to become our newest platinum member, call me, and we'll help you make it happen. We also have silver members all over the world, and one of the groups that is very exciting is our associate members. These are academic and research institutions all over the world that are helping to advance the technologies we work on and build the next generation of talent for all of your companies to hire in a few years. So these are very important organizations as well. And it's not just about companies. It's also about all of the people, all of you. And the Open Infra Foundation has over 100,000 individual community members in almost every country in the world. This is the true power of open source and what Open Infra Foundation is all about. Now, I mentioned that OpenStack is probably our most well-known open source software for infrastructure. And this software has had over 600,000 code changes from 10,000 developers from hundreds of organizations. This is really critical when you think about how we as a foundation, as a community, build the software for the next generation of infrastructure. This is exactly how we've done it before and how we're going to continue to do it. And that makes OpenStack one of the most active open source projects in the world today. And it's also a process we've created for additional software, all the new software. We kind of think of it as a factory for producing software, and it's a major engine for innovation. And the way that we do this is very much about building a coalition of many, many individuals and companies all over the world. What we're doing is not single vendor open source. Other people are doing that. That's not what we're doing. We're about bringing all the different companies together, deciding what needs to get created, and managing that as a foundation, as a community, to produce great software. And obviously, we are big believers in open source. Harvard recently did a study which showed that open source in total has created $8 trillion in value, which, and I looked this up, is 12 quadrillion won. So I'm excited to have my first keynote to mention quadrillion. So that's a first. And when we think about OpenStack specifically, and we look at how big that market is, it's over $20 billion US today. And in just a few years, it's going to grow to over $90 billion, which is over 100 trillion won. And of course, it's important to measure the economic impact, but it's also as important when it comes to open source to get the vibes right. And so, as my daughters might say, OpenStack's got Riz. With apologies to the interpreters for saying Riz. I don't know what it means either, don't worry. So, to give you a concrete example of what I'm talking about here, with just one company in Europe, Little, they're part of Schwartz, which is a very large company in Europe. They have built an OpenStack public cloud. It was featured in the Financial Times a couple of weeks ago. That's over $2 billion a year in revenue. And so we are often discovering these new clouds, and I think sometimes OpenStack is the best kept secret in infrastructure because we hear so much about Amazon and Microsoft and Google, and they're doing all these impressive things, but OpenStack continues to grow in private and public clouds. Oftentimes, people don't realize that. So what I want to talk about for the rest of the talk really is about how much the world is changing and sort of like try to make sense of it. Because I personally feel like the world is changing faster right now than ever in my lifetime. Does anybody else feel that way? Anyone else feel like it's just hard to keep up? I mean, every day I feel like I've tried to keep track of AI and all these other technology trends, and I think when it comes to the pace of change in the world, technology is driving most of it, right? And nowhere is that more acute or more specific than in infrastructure. So when I'm faced with lots of change, I always try to start with a simple question, which is just, what is going on here? What is the situation? So I want to try to make some sense of it today by breaking it down into 4 defined trends, 4 things that I'm tracking that I think might be relevant to you all that you may want to track as well, and specifically share how open source communities and organizations and ecosystems and foundations are responding, driving the change that we need to meet the challenges of all of these categories. And that's driving, by the way, that OpenStack growth that we're seeing go crazy up right now, and Kata containers and other open source, Kubernetes, et cetera. So the first trend that is really creating a lot of waves and a lot of reactions and the need to adopt open source even more is digital sovereignty. So to kind of put this simply, digital sovereignty comes into play when you really care where your data is, where's it living, who has access to it, and what laws apply to it. So this can be, as an individual, many of you may care a lot about where your data lives and who has access to it and what laws apply to it. Certainly applies to corporations. And increasingly what we see is because of these factors, governments are getting more involved. They're learning about open source. They're out there trying to create new regulations. That changes the game. This is something we have to all adapt to. So when we think about a concrete example of how open source is reacting to and helping address this specific trend, one good example would be in France. So the 9 largest banks in France all run OpenStack. And the reason is pretty clear, right? It's digital sovereignty. They need to have the data in country. They care where it lives. They have to apply and comply with local laws. Banking, heavily regulated industry. They also need reliable software, right? They're not going to run their mission-critical bank workloads where your money is stored without something they can really trust. And that's why they've turned to OpenStack. And as I mentioned before, it's not just private clouds. We have OpenStack public clouds in hundreds of data centers all over the world. And I think I mentioned this example earlier, the Lidl cloud. But this Financial Times article specifically calls out that a main selling point of its service is that all client data is processed and stored exclusively in Germany and Austria. So we see this trend throughout Europe, throughout Asia, and it continues to be a driver for interest and investment in open source, in particular OpenStack. Now, it's not just hardware, right? When you want control, you want access to technology, you want to make sure that not only do you have access, but you continue to have access. Sometimes you may lose access to technologies that you were relying on, or license changes out from under you. So an interesting development in the hardware space, and we have a lot of great hardware speakers later that know more than I do, but RISC-V is a very good example. This is an open source design for semiconductors, for chips. And recently, there was a research paper published about how to run OpenStack on RISC-V. So you can see why this trend would be rising along with the digital sovereignty trend, because people want something they know they can have access to and control over where it lives and build their own infrastructure domestically and have it access to it for the long haul. And in this research paper, it specifically calls out that European Union's technological sovereignty strategy centers around RISC-V. So this is just another example where we see open technologies being more important than ever in this changing world that we live in that's just very hard to keep up with. So the second trend is licensing changes. So to give you an example, a lot of these licensing changes, by the way, are not good for customers. They're not good for the market. But open source is once again there to respond and react and provide the resilience that is lacking in the single vendor open source or the proprietary software world. So many of you may use Terraform. And not too long ago, the company that was the primary driver of that open source project decided to close source it. They changed the license. However, and a lot of people were upset, but open source to the rescue here. The Linux Foundation set up a new foundation, created a new project that was a fork of Terraform called OpenTofu. And Oracle, not long after, was recommending their customers, don't adopt Terraform, adopt the true open alternative, the fork, which has been growing very fast, OpenTofu. Now, another example would be VMware. And by the way, I want to say that these changes, when companies introduce them, oftentimes it really breaks trust that's been built up for years. And it takes years to build trust. We know in open source, trust is huge. But it can be gone in an instant. So VMware, many of you have probably been impacted by this, came to some customers and said, you're going to have to pay 10 times more. And they actually just cut off some of their partners that were trying to help VMware be successful and just said, you're out. And so once again, open source really responded. And we went to our members of the Open Infrastructure Foundation, and we talked to all of them. Many are here. And 80% of them said they'd already had customers asking, how can I go from VMware to OpenStack? And 60% of them had already helped at least one customer migrate to OpenStack. And we've got a really cool demo about this later and a lot more to come on this. But it's a huge trend. And one very specific example is one of the second largest insurance company in the United States. It's called Geico. It's actually owned by Warren Buffett, who you may know. And so they take great care in their choices of how they manage their money and how they manage their infrastructure. And they recently built a massive OpenStack cloud. And we have a white paper about VMware to OpenStack migration. We just published today. QR code is here, so you can find it. But it specifically dives into the Geico example, and I think it's a great one. So check that out. So the third trend are security concerns. Now, I think you all have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis, and one stat that really caught my eye recently is that 87% of container images in production have critical or high-severity vulnerabilities. That's a pretty scary stat. And so the example where open source is responding is a project that our foundation hosts called Kata Containers. Now, this project has been seeing massive growth recently, a ton of interest, because it solves a real-world problem, which is how to secure these containers, right? And it really strikes a balance between speed and security. And it is really a lightweight virtualization. I can't give you the whole spiel on it today, but it's lightweight virtualization. It gives you the speed of containers and the security of virtual machines. And that's why you see companies like Microsoft Azure rolling out Kata container support. NVIDIA, you probably heard of them. They're investing in Kata for GPU security. And most recently, Amazon Web Services had customers asking for Kata container support, and they wrote some documentation on how you can enable it in an AWS environment. And so the last major shift that I want to talk about in terms of what is happening here, AI. You probably hear about that often. Well, it absolutely is making a huge impact when it comes to security. Infrastructure. When it comes to infrastructure investment, what technologies we need to build. And recently, a report was published in which 96% of organizations said they are investing in building new compute capacity for AI. Is this familiar to anyone? Anyone out there trying to procure GPUs, trying to install them in their data centers as fast as possible? This is happening at a major scale, an unprecedented scale. We've never seen this type of infrastructure build out, ever. And Jensen Huang, the founder and CEO of NVIDIA, recently said that we're going to need to build another $1 trillion of infrastructure, physical infrastructure, basically data centers full of GPUs. He would probably want it to be his GPUs in order to meet this demand. And another way to think about this, when you think about the power requirements, right? We've seen an 11x increase in data center build out as measured by megawatts, and soon we'll be building gigawatt data centers. So this is a massive investment, and you'll hear more about the hardware side of it later from people that are experts on that, but it certainly means more and more software. And a lot of this is about how much data is being created, right? So a concrete example of the open source response is that in the UK, the fastest supercomputer for AI being built, it's called the Dawn supercomputer, is being run by OpenStack. And one of the companies that's one of those members I showed you earlier is Stack HPC, and they're helping to run that. Another example is Hyundai. They'll be talking later. They've built a massive OpenStack cloud to power their 10 million connected cars. So we continue to see this over and over again. One more example I'll give you is a company called NextGen Cloud, and that's easy to remember. NextGen infrastructure is run by this company, NextGen Cloud. They're one of the top 10 buyers of GPUs in the world, specifically these high-end GPUs for AI and machine learning, and they're also running OpenStack. And that points to the fact that OpenStack's already very popular and meeting the needs of AI workloads. However, we also see and have to remember, OpenStack never sleeps. OpenStack is constantly evolving. We just had our 29th release of OpenStack, and we already have seen new features like vGPU Live Migration land. This is in the Caracal release, released a few months ago. So we're constantly changing OpenStack to meet these new infrastructure demands. And the last piece that I'll mention is more on sort of what goes on top of the infrastructure. So when it comes to AI models, 96% of companies are planning to build their AI strategy, their production environment, using open source models. And so, once again, open source is leading the innovation there. So when we think about, again, all the components needed, there's new hardware, whether it's RISC-V or next generation GPUs, FPGAs, all the new architectures that are coming online to support the workload. There's new software that has to get written and new applications, whether it's the AI models or other higher level constructs. And this is not new to us. 10 years ago, the telco industry said, we want to do our next generation infrastructure upgrade. It's a $1 trillion investment over 10 years. And as a result, today, 9 out of 10 of the largest telcos run OpenStack. So we know how to do this, and we're going to do it again. And it starts, again, with uniting and forming the coalitions of the companies, figuring out what software needs to get written, and getting down to work and coordinating all that upstream work. And so if we think about this challenge we see ahead of us, we think about how fast the world is changing, there is only one way that we can tackle this and we can manage this change and we can thrive in it. And open source is the way. So let's join together and make it happen. Thank you.
네, 오픈 인프라 재단의 마크 콜린스님에게 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 그 다음 키노트는 OCP 재단의 칩 이노베이션 오피서인 크립 그론서님께서 OCP 재단 환영사가 있겠습니다. 큰 박수로 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
Well, welcome everyone. It's great to be here in Korea. Thank you, Mark. And as Young Jung-soo said, I'm with the Open Compute Project. And when Mark talked about infrastructure, I'm not sure if he meant software or hardware, but we are the hardware infrastructure that runs underneath all the software infrastructure. And I think between the two organizations, we've put together a really interesting set of content, and I wish you all a great conference in terms of learning and moving forward. So I know that not everyone knows the Open Compute Project here. Some do very well. And so the first thing I wanted to share with you is the mission for the Open Compute Project, which for us has been evolving over the last 12 years since we were formed, and has been very stable for the last few years. And we've been working very hard as a community to meet the requirements of the existing marketplace and work on shaping the future. So how do we do that? Well, the foundation works very hard to establish and grow a community of people that come together to work on problems that they've identified that are hard and that they want to share those problems and work together to solve them. At the heart of our community are the hyperscale data center operators, because they are typically the first organizations that discover the hard problems because they operate at such a large scale. And then they are joined by others, such as IT vendors, data center facility providers, data center facility vendors, to work on the hard problems. Now, what do they produce? They typically produce open source hardware specifications or best practice documents describing what are the best way to operate a data center, white papers looking at innovations that are needed from the community for the future. And together, our vendor members go to work. They build products that are based on the specifications designed by the community. They build solutions, and then those products and solutions are available in the Open Compute Project marketplace. Now, all the work that's done in the community, as you can see by the whirlwind in the center of this chart, follows 5 important tenets. First, they can operate, they're open. They operate in a very sustainable way, as sustainable as we can make them. They are as efficient as we can make them. We choose problems that will have impact in the marketplace. And they are open. So the Open Compute Project has been growing steadily since its inception. We currently have over 360 corporate members from all corners of the market. Since we started our startup membership just 12 months ago, we've had over 50 startup companies join us, bringing new ideas and innovations into the community. The Open Compute Project Foundation oversees and facilitates over 150 projects and work streams. We have over 5,000 active engineers working in our projects and over 200 volunteer leaders that help lead the projects. Also, I'm very comfortable to tell you that the Open Compute Project has significant market impact. We commissioned IDC to do a market study for us to understand what was the revenue to our vendor members from equipment that was based on designs from the Open Compute Project community. It turns out for 2023, that was $34 billion US, which is a significant portion if you were to look at the server market and see how large that is. We have made a recent change at the Open Compute Project to look at how do we grow and bring in diversity. And what's important here is you can see we've created an advisory board to the CEO and the board of directors. And one of the companies that we've added is Samsung from Korea. And you can see this is a very select group of companies. And we made the selection based upon the contribution to the community, the technical pedigree of the people, and also what was the geography to bring diversity into and the market segment that the company was in. The intent is to have this advisory board help the OCP board of directors and the CEO and the foundation look at how do we solve some of the upcoming very large business challenges moving forward. Also, the Open Compute Project board of directors is considering at some point in the future expanding the board of directors, and the companies that are on the advisory board will be candidates for joining the board of directors of OCP. I wanted to come back to the $34 billion because for us that's a very significant number. So $34 billion worth of revenue impact in the marketplace for 2023. If we roll forward and forecast the future, 5 years from 2023 to 2028, that's a $74 billion number. That is the forecasted impact by IDC for the Open Compute Project community in the marketplace. Now, we're in Korea and we're in APAC, so my talk wouldn't be complete without giving you some idea of the breakdown by region. And so if we take a look at that $74 billion number for 2028, and we look at APAC, including China, that represents about 35% of that number, which is very significant, which means that the Open Compute Project Foundation understands how important APAC and Korea is in terms of our roadmap for the future and the contribution to the community. So just to make sure everyone understands that that's recognized. So with that, I'm going to finish my talk by asking everyone to join the Open Compute Project. It's a community. And so with a community, you get out of it what you put into it. And so with that, let me wish you everyone a good conference, and we'll see you next time.
네, 감사합니다. 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다. 다음 키노트는 메타의 인프라스트럭처 디렉터인 데이비드 램크님께서 메타의 OCP 컨트리뷰션이라는 주제로 발표를 해 주시겠습니다. 큰 박수로 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
Hi, good morning. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. It's always a pleasure when we come here and we see the power of community. My slides aren't showing. Oh, there they go. So my name is David Ramku. I'm wearing two hats today. One is as a member of the board of directors of the Open Compute Project. Another hat I'm wearing today is as a senior director of the infrastructure organization for Meta Platforms. You guys, I'm sure, have heard of OCP over the years, but I always find it helpful to use this opportunity to recap in terms of where we started. So my company used to be known as Facebook. It's obviously one of the platforms that we currently use. Coming out of the financial crisis in 2008, it determined it was important to build its own highly optimized data centers. This was known as Project Freedom. Fast forward a couple of years later, it became clear that there were limitations to how far we could go. We needed the power of a greater community. Therefore, we partnered with other companies, Microsoft, Intel, Rackspace, Goldman Sachs, Andy Bechtolsheim, who was a founder of Sun Microsystems and Arista Networks, to found OCP in 2011. Fast forward to today, you heard some of the stats from Cliff, but I love mentioning these again. We've got 360 corporate members. It's fantastic. There are over 150 work efforts, over 250 volunteer leaders. There are 5,000 active participants. Our various events are attended by over 12,000 folks a year. I got to attend a similar regional event about a month ago in Beijing. That was obviously really well attended, and people find it valuable. And earlier in the year, we also had the regional summit in Lisbon, Portugal. It's always great to see how global the impact of this initiative is and how far it's come over the years. And obviously, we see over 16,000 visits per month in the OCP marketplace, so that's great to see as well. Now, who are our members? Our members represent a wide range of industries. Obviously, we've got the hyperscalers, both US-based as well as global. But you also have colo companies, you've got telco companies, enterprise, IT equipment companies. There is a lot of the component suppliers that are also strong participants. Many of them are in this room. If you actually look at these names, these folks are either the companies you work for, your customers, or your suppliers. So it's a pretty impressive list of contributors that we continue to seek to grow. And you think of this collaborative community effort as a continuum. we've got an incubator part of the continuum where you've got the future technology initiatives. Think of technologies that will be out 4 to 6 to 10 years out that we'd like to act as an incubator on. Same thing goes for startups that can start to participate and engage early on. Much of the work goes around the community projects. We kind of group these into 3 large buckets. There is the data center IT infrastructure bucket. You've got the data center physical infrastructure, as well as the systems management. So there is lots of initiatives that are going on under each of those, and a lot of the work happens right there. There is also new initiatives around technology as well as markets. So for example, if you think of markets, the new photonics market, which obviously is significant. The emerging markets around chiplets is also really important to those who are investing significantly in building out their infrastructure. And we also contribute quite a bit in terms through the market, the OCP marketplace that I mentioned earlier. It already gets 16,000 visitors per year or per month. So let me talk a bit about AI. I'm sure everybody's hearing it every time they talk to their family or turn on the news or show up to any meeting at work. It is a very significant technology set of innovations and investments that are taking place right now. In the 20 years I've been in this business, this is the greatest sense of urgency towards innovating in the space that I've seen. This does represent a significant opportunity for OCP, and that's why we've framed this as an umbrella strategic initiative. And the opportunity for OCP is whenever there is radical technological shifts, there is an opportunity to leverage the community to drive innovation and to drive efficiency and drive a greater level of standardization and openness as the technology shift is happening. And what do we have to leverage as an open compute project that allows us to do this better? Well, we can obviously leverage our OCP hyperscale community. We can leverage our extended alliance partners, and there is many of them. And there is a trusted IP model that enables our OpenAI systems, so we can build systems that are sustainable, adoptable to a broad range of customers, and that innovation can be waterfalled in a more economically viable way. What are we looking to achieve? We obviously believe that there is benefits to standardization, driving efficiency in the next generation of AI clusters by leveraging the learnings of the current generations and the collaborations from the current generations. So, as you guys also have heard, these AI data centers are pretty resource intensive. They do consume a lot of power and a lot of other resources. So it's a pretty high priority for our community to focus on sustainability. So things like carbon disclosures, providing our community with better tools to do carbon estimation, sustainability metrics around power and water, and as well as enabling that circular economy where components are waterfall down to other uses so that it eliminates a lot of these components ending up in landfills. So that's a pretty important vector for OCP. So the company I represent here, Meta Platforms, as I mentioned earlier, has been a key contributor to OCP. We expect that to continue. What we find is that as we've contributed over the years, our innovations have been leveraged by companies around the world. And that improves the economics of the next generation of innovations. We expect the same thing to continue in the AI space. We also spend a fair amount of time collaborating with other fellow hyperscalers to help standardize and bring more of those innovations forward to the rest of the community. So why do we do this? We do this because we think it's important to align with industry standards. It helps us move faster when you've got a larger community that is building to similar standards and specifications. We have also found it quite beneficial from a cost perspective. So it helps drive significant cost efficiencies that obviously we find are helpful to curb our CapEx investment over time. And we also think it's important to have a voice at shaping the future of our industry. And these aren't vectors of value that are unique to Meta. All of the participants that engage with OCP will find very similar value drivers. And I encourage you to participate even more significantly than you are because these are quite measurable and impactful to the business. So as I try to wrap up, I'm going to repeat Cliff's call around getting involved. We want you guys to join, whether it's project mailing lists or project calls, to help drive various projects, to help run various work streams and initiatives that you think are valuable, contribute effort, specifications, innovations that your companies are spending time on, products and facilities, as well as attend these summits, these events. It's very important for us to connect with one another, and there is no better way to do it than these events that bring us together. So thank you so much for being here. Or as my 7-year-old who takes Taekwondo and has learned a bit of Korean taught me to say is 감사합니다. Thank you.
네, 데이비드 랭쿠님 감사합니다. 다음 키노트는 같은 메타의 AI 디렉터인 다미 시차님께서 실리코 드림스 투어스 더 AI 싱귤러리티라는 주제로 발표를 해주시겠습니다. 큰 환영 부탁드리겠습니다.
We are all very lucky. We will witness emergence of artificial general intelligence in our lifetime. And open source technology, driven by Open Infra and OCP, will play a very important role in this. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dharmesh Jani, and I'm engaged in building open ecosystems for AI infra at Meta. And today, I'm going to share some of my thoughts around how this journey is going to take place. I'm also inspired by these books, which are written by two futurists who I admire a lot, and they predicted arrival of this movement more than 30 years ago. While I've talked to many people over the last many years, there are some skeptics who are really wondering, is it really going to be there? Are we really going to be at AGI in next decade or so? Let me share a small story here. 1903, New York Times wrote an article where they said that humans will not take to flight for over a million years. This was 1903. 69 days later, a machine heavier than air flew from Kitty Hawk. Future can be much closer than we imagine. So before we go into the details of artificial general intelligence, it is important for us to perhaps talk about what exactly it is. The way I look at it is how humans interact. I'm standing here. We are interacting with various modalities of verbal, visual, physical, emotional. Imagine you are doing all of that with silicon-based synthetic form interacting with carbon-based life form. That's what I think of when I think of AGI. There are a few differences, of course. One is silicon, one is carbon-based, and there are other differences based on neurons, number of parameters which are there in large language models, what kind of memory capacity you have, and very important and near and dear to my heart, the amount of power which is consumed across these two systems. However, the modalities of interactions would remain the same, indicating arrival of AGI. You can also look at it as a definition in two dimensions. One is amount of knowledge which you possess across various domains and tasks, as well as looking at your ability, the ability of an intelligent machine to do complex planning, reasoning, and especially self-improvement through constant learning. And that is where we will arrive at singularity. That would be the point where systems will start becoming better on their own, and at some point, very quickly, surpass the collective of human intelligence. And you might be wondering why all of this is happening. Actually, there are three universal use cases I see which is driving all of this technology. And these three universal cases are driving us through our own progression over the last millions of years. Recognition, mining, and synthesis. Millions of years ago, human was walking around in the forest and had to recognize a lion in the grass. You're standing at the airport, scanning through, mining through hundreds of faces looking for your loved ones. Or we are imagining tomorrow how to go to Mars, synthesize new ideas. And the generative AI movement, which has arrived, has been really particularly good at solving for these three use cases. Let me give you a very simple, impressive data point. If you look at how many years it took for Facebook to get to 100 million users, it was around 4 years. If you look at Instagram, it was around 2 years. And Llama 3 model, which was launched 2 months ago, it was downloaded over 180 million times in just last 1 week. It reached 100 million users within a month. And that is basically because these models are so powerful, so effective. Meta's workloads have been changing as a result of this growth. And these changes are in orders of magnitude. And they continue through 2024 as we launched bigger and bigger models. And all of these workloads are driven through domain-specific accelerators, which are all put together in a node, fully connected, and then these nodes are put together in form of clusters. All of these clusters are managed with a front-end network, and then you have a back-end network, which is managing all the exchange of weights and computations which are happening across these elements. Physical instantiation looks something like this. This is where something like OpenStack would run, and this is where OCP also would provide all of the hardware gear. Meta infra clusters have also been growing over the last couple of years, and we expect this growth to continue in the next era as we start looking at arrival of AGI. So the future is really exciting for all of us working in infrastructure. However, there are challenges and opportunities as a result of all the growth which is happening, and I see them on 3 fronts. You have models, you have energy systems, and you have hardware-software co-design. When you look at the models, your models need to exhibit flexible reasoning, complex planning, and efficient learning. If you think about human brain, it takes around a light bulb of power, but a 5-year-old can recognize a cat and a dog with a much less training than today's state-of-the-art model. You need to look at new world-explicit models. Meta's chief AI scientist, Yann LeCun, has proposed a JEPA model, which is Joint Embedded Predictive Architecture, which takes into account the world-explicit view as well as a deep tree search. Beyond that, we have to look at also the increasing amount of energy required to run these models. You heard previous speakers talk about this, and these energies required for running bigger and bigger clusters are going to lead to demand for gigawatt of data center. I believe Mark mentioned about arrival of these large data centers as well. And that means we have to look at new ways to do energy generation. We have to look at new ways to do energy distribution. There's a lot of stranded capacity in these data centers. We have to look at tapping into them, and of course, the way to store them. All of this has to be done through sustainable means. David talked about that. There are also challenges in developing silicon for domain-specific architecture. And if you look at a typical silicon running in these workloads, there are few primitives which are very important. You have compute cores, you have onboard memory, you have interconnects, and you have memory pool. And all of these are connected in an all-to-all network. And that actually has problem today because the rate at which your compute is growing is twice as fast as your memory bandwidth or interconnect bandwidth. And that's a gap which we have to address. It's a challenge for us engineers to figure out how to do that. There are some ways forward. industry is looking at neuromorphic computing, which is basically completely looking at a different way compared to a von Neumann model where you have compute on one side, memory on one side. If you look at your human brain, it has memory and compute distributed evenly across. That would be one way. Another way would be to also look at ways to build bigger and bigger silicon going beyond reticle sizes. And this is one area where there is massive amount of research happening in trying to build larger and larger devices, which can support building larger clusters at lower latencies. Now, all of this work which we are going to do is going to happen in open source manner. AI for all must be open sourced. This is something which Meta is deeply involved in. We have contributed models on the AI side. We have built frameworks, PyTorch, which is one of the most dominant software framework today. And Meta also launched OCP way back in 2011. David talked about our history with OCP. This year, Meta has also been engaged in launching Open System for AI initiative, again, something which David went into detail. And the idea is, how can we bring AI for all via standardization and modularity? This is something we deeply believe in. You can see from the statistics, today Llama 3.1 is one of the biggest commonly used open source models in the industry. So as we go through the human evolution and as we go through various epochs, it is interesting to keep the story in mind, which I said earlier, that future might be much closer than we imagine. We are looking at arrival of large systems which can answer every question you have. And you might have a power of entire human intelligence in your palm. It can answer any question you want. All of us here have a role to play in making this a reality. Now, that is an exciting future we can all look towards. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. So for our next speaker, we're here in Korea, so we thought it would be appropriate to bring the largest automaker in Korea. Mark alluded to it earlier. But I would like to welcome Dr. Han from Hyundai Motor Company to talk about how they're using OpenStack to build the connected cars at Hyundai.
네, 안녕하세요. 현대자동차에서 클라우드 개발을 담당하고 있는 한영주입니다. 네, 요즘 자동차 산업계에서는 SDV, Software Defined Vehicle이라는 기술 트렌드가 아주 중요하게 다뤄지고 있습니다. SDV라는 거는 소프트웨어로 하드웨어를 제어하고 관리하는 자동차를 말하는데요. 요즘 많이 얘기되고 있는 얘기 중에 하나가 바퀴 달린 스마트폰 또는 굴러가는 컴퓨터라는 식으로 많이 얘기를 하고 있죠. 네. 기존에 자동차가 단순하게 운송의 수단이었다면은 다양한 IT 기술과 접목하면서 스마트 모빌리티로 진화하고 있다는 걸 얘기하고 있습니다. 많이 아시는 것처럼 스마트폰이 클라우드와 떼서는 생각할 수 없는 것처럼 스마트 모빌리티도 클라우드와 떼서 생각하기 어렵습니다. 그래서 2021년부터 저희는 자체 프라이빗 클라우드를 개발하기 시작했고 그 여정에 대해서 간단하게 말씀드리도록 하겠습니다. 네, SDV 관련해서 여러분들이 제일 쉽게 접할 수 있는 것들은 아마 커넥티드 카 서비스일 것입니다. 아마 한 번쯤 차를 가지고 계신 분들은 써보셨을 것 같은데요. 리모트 앱에서 차량의 문을 열고 닫고 한다든지, 추운 겨울에 히터를 미리 틀어놓고 자동차로 간다든지, 더운 여름에 에어컨을 켜고 차로 들어간다든지, 그런 기본적인 기능에서 또 요즘에는 또 원격에서 자동차를 진단하는 그런 다양한 기능들을 제공하고 있습니다. 저희 현대자동차 그룹, 현대, 기아, 제네시스에서도 그런 커넥티카 서비스를 제공하고 있는데요. 그런 대부분의 서비스는 저희 자체 프라이빗 클라우드, H클라우드라고 하는 클라우드를 기반으로 해서 러닝을 하고 있습니다. 자, 비록 기능은 제한적이지만 현대자동차가 처음 커넥티카 서비스를 출시한 건 한국에서 2003년경이었습니다. 점점점 진화하면서 지금에는 다양한 기능들을 제공하는 커넥티카 서비스를 제공하고 있는데요. 한국을 시작으로 해서 지금은 미국, 캐나다, 유럽, 호주 등등 52개국 이상에서 커넥티카 서비스를 제공하고 있습니다. 또 이것 커넥티카 서비스를 사용하는 사용자의 관점에서 보면은 저희가 2018년도에 100만 대의 차를 시작으로 해서 이제 2023년에는 1000만을 돌파했고 2026년도에는 2천만 대의 차를 커넥티카 서비스를 제공할 것으로 예상하고 있습니다. 이제 앞서 말씀드린 것처럼 이런 커넥티카 서비스가 가입자가 늘어나고 그 말인 것은 자동차가 잘 팔린다는 얘기죠. 근데 회사 입장에서는 정말 좋은 얘기인데 저희 이 서비스를 제공하는 개발자, 소프트웨어 개발자, 엔지니어 관점에서는 쉬운 일은 아닙니다. 예를 들면은 급격하게 증가하는 이제 사용자, 그리고 다양하게 늘어나고 있는 서비스, 그리고 명절이나 동절기, 하절기에 급격하게 갑작스럽게 예상하지 못한 그런 요청들, 폭발적인 요청에서도 대응할 수 있는 그런 것들이 필요합니다. 그래서 이런 것들을 잘 서포트할 수 있는 인프라스트럭처가 필요하다고 생각했습니다. 그래서 2021년부터 SDV를 지원하기 위해서 프라이빗 클라우드를 개발을 시작했고 이제 오늘 2024년까지 이제 저희의 그 전의는 계속적으로 진행되고 있습니다. 저희는 프라이빗 클라우드를 개발함에 있어서 5가지에 집중을 했습니다. 첫 번째, High Availability. 데이터 센터 레벨에서 고가용성을 보장하기 위해서 저희가 처음 시작할 때부터 복수의 데이터 센터를 활용해서 서비스를 제공하는 것들을 고려해서 설계와 개발을 진행했습니다. 두 번째는 라지 스케일 네트워크입니다. 앞서 말씀드린 것처럼 가입자가 계속적으로 늘어나고 또 하나가 큰 변수가 차량에서 만들어지는 여러 가지 데이터들을 클라우드가 받아서 분석 또는 AI 이런 것들을 수행해야 되기 때문에 계속적으로 확장할 수 있는 네트워크를 기반으로 클라우드를 구축해서 개발을 했습니다. 또 하나가 오토메이션입니다. 아마 운영을 해보셨던 분들이라면은 아마 많이 느끼실 텐데요. 그러니까 휴먼 에러나 아니면 운영 코스트를 절감하기 위해서 이제 자동화를 모든 영역에 적용을 했습니다. 그리고 또 하나 중요한 것이 모니터링입니다. 저희 고객들이 서비스를 받는데 장애 없이 서비스를 받을 수 있게끔 하기 위해서 시스템과 하드웨어의 옵저버빌리티를 강화하고 이상 증상을 빨리 디텍해서 장애를 방지하기 위해서 그런 것들 모니터링에 집중을 했습니다. 마지막으로 무엇보다 중요한 것은 이제 내재화였습니다. 저희는 필요한 기능들을 기반으로 해서 로드맵을 수립하고 2021년부터 단계적으로 소프트웨어를 내재화해서 개발을 하고 있습니다. 아마 여기 계신 분들 중에 많이 소프트웨어 개발자들이 있으실 텐데 아마 저희들은 뭘 하고 있는 건지에 대해서 아마 궁금하실 것 같습니다. 그래서 다음 장에서 저희가 하고 있는 것들에 대해서 간단하게 말씀을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 기본적으로 저희 H클라우드의 프로덕트들은 이제 오픈 소스를 기반으로 해서 이제 인하우스에서 자체 개발을 해서 양산, 인프로덕션을 하고 있습니다. 몇 가지 간단하게 말씀을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 앞서 말씀드린 것처럼 저희가 모니터링을 굉장히 중요하게 생각을 하고 있습니다. 그래서 아마존의 클라우드 와치와 같은 그런 솔루션들, H클라우드의 모니터나 또 서비스 엔드포인트를 모니터링해서 이상 유무를 판단할 수 있는 이제 H클라우드 와처 그런 기능들을 개발했고 또 차량에서 수집되는 많은 비정형 데이터들을 모아서 단일한 스토리지에 저장할 수 있도록 하기 위해서 오픈 소스를 기반으로 해서 오브젝트 스토리지를 자체 개발해서 이제 운영을 하고 있습니다. 또 이런 오브젝트 스토리지들이 수백 기가의 리드라이트, 풋겟을 리퀘스트들이 오기 때문에 그 앞단에서 로드 밸런싱 해줄 수 있는 로드 밸런서를 EBF 기반으로 해서 자체적으로 소프트웨어 로드 밸런서를 만들어서 서비스에 적용하고 있습니다. 무엇보다 중요한 것들은 아마 많이 사용하는 컴퓨터일 것 같은데요. 저희는 컴퓨터를 세 가지 관점에서 제공하고 있습니다. 베어메탈, 그러니까 베어메탈의 경우에는 from the bottom, 그러니까 밑에서부터 완전히 새롭게 코드를 만들어서 이제 자체적으로 베어메탈 서비스를 제공하고 있고, 두 번째 컨테이너는 쿠버네티스와 렌처를 기반으로 해서 이제 컨테이너 서비스를 제공하고 있습니다. 마지막으로 VM은 오픈스택을 기반으로 해서 만들어졌습니다. 네, 아마 오픈스택으로 기반으로 해서 만들어진 저희 H클라우드에서는 어떻게 운영되고 있는지 아마 조금 궁금해하실 것 같아서 간단하게 앱스트랙트한 레벨에서 이제 설명을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 앞서 말씀드린 것처럼 저희는 복수의 데이터 센터를 이용해서 이제 각 리전을 구성하고 있기 때문에 이를 기반으로 해서 오픈스택을 활용하고 있습니다. 기본적으로 두 개의 데이터 센터는 3ms 이내의 네트워크 레이턴시를 가지는 두 개의 복수 센터를 선정하고 이를 하나의 가상의 데이터 센터처럼 만들고 이걸 하나의 오픈스택을 이용해서 서비스를 하고 있습니다. 하나의 데이터 센터가 죽어도 VM의 라이프 사이클을 매니지먼트 하기에는 문제가 없도록 구성해서 서비스를 제공하고 있습니다. 이렇게 리전이 구성이 되고 나면은 글로벌 관점에서 생각해야 됩니다. 네, 각 리전들을 모아서 통합할 수 있는 오케스트레이션 레이어를 만들었고 각각의 리전의 오픈스택과 통신할 수 있는 컨트롤러를 만들어서 REST API 기반으로 통신을 하면서 전체를 하나의 관점에서 관리하고 운영할 수 있도록 서비스를 하고 있습니다. 저희가 2021년부터 오픈스택 기반으로 해서 VM 서비스를 제공하고 있는데 지금까지 VM으로 인해서 장애가 발생한 적이 없습니다. 이 자리를 빌어서 이제 오픈 인프라 파운데이션과 오픈스택 프로젝트 커뮤니티에 감사의 말씀을 전하고 싶습니다. 네, 이렇게 만들어진 표준 아키텍처를 기반으로 저희는 글로벌하게 서비스를 하고 있습니다. 앞서 말씀드렸던 것처럼 이제 저희가 글로벌하게 50개국 이상의 커넥티드 서비스를 제공하고 있는데 이를 위해서 현재 글로벌 4개의 리전을 구축하고 서비스를 하고 있습니다. 2021년도에 싱가포르의 APEC을 아시아 퍼시픽을 커버하기 위해서 첫 번째 리전을 런칭했고 22년도에 한국 그리고 미국 23년도에 유럽을 런칭해서 지금 글로벌 서비스를 진행하고 있습니다. 그러면 지금 현재는 저희 H클라우드가 어떤 상황인지 그리고 얼마나 규모인지 품질은 어떤지 그런 것들에 대해서 아마 궁금증이 있으실 것 같은데요. 앞서 말씀드렸던 것처럼 2024년 8월 기준으로 해서 저희가 서포트하는 차량 대수는 글로벌하게 1,000만 대 이상을 서포트하고 있습니다. 그리고 1,300대 이상의 컴퓨트 노드를 기반으로 해서 12,000개 이상의 VM을 서비스하고 있고 블락 스토리지나 파일 스토리지나 이런 형태로 10페타 이상의 스토리지를 사용하고 있습니다. 저희가 가입자가 계속 증가하면은 디피컬티 어려움들은 더 늘어나고 있죠. 그럼에도 불구하고 저희가 H클라우드를 런칭한 22년 서비스들이 이제 마이그레이션된 22년, 23년으로 봤을 때 점점 품질이 증가하는 것들을 볼 수 있습니다. 그래서 전체적으로 장애 발생 빈도가 줄었고 장애 발생 시간이 줄었고 또 사용자가 느끼는 퀄리티, 이제 서비스 품질 지수도 체감도 많이 개선이 되었습니다. 네, 마지막인데요. 저희가 내부적으로 품질 지표를 측정하는 것도 중요한데 가장 중요한 거는 우리 서비스를 사용하는 고객들이 어떻게 느끼는가인 것 같습니다. JD 파워라고 해서 미국에서 자동차를 전문으로 하는 소비자 품질 지수를 측정하는 기관이 있습니다. 저희가 커넥티드카 서비스를 저희 H클라우드에 23년에 마이그레이션 한 이후에 발표된 JD 파워에서 저희 현대, 기아, 제네시스의 품질 지표를 간단하게 가져왔습니다. 2023년 이제 ICE라고 하면 가솔린 자동차를 얘기하는데요. 현대가 매스 프로덕트에선 1위를 차지했고 기아가 4위, 제네시스가 이제 프리미엄 브랜드에서 3위를 차지했습니다. 24년대는 전기차를 기준으로 해서 다시 어플리케이션에 대해서 리포트, 소비자 만족 지수를 측정한 거에 의하면은 현대가 1위, 기아가 2위, 제네시스가 전기차에서는 4위를 차지했습니다. 글로벌 탑 레벨을 유지할 수 있었습니다. 기존에는 10위권 정도의 순위였는데 저희 클라우드를 만들고 서비스를 올리면서 이제 품질 지수가 많이 높아졌다는 걸 알 수 있습니다. 네. 지금까지 저희가 2021년도부터 시작해서 24년 현재까지 이제 저희가 자체 프라이빗 클라우드를 만들고 이제 서비스를 제공하면서 만들었던 여러 가지 프로덕트 그리고 품질 개선에 대해서 말씀을 드렸는데요. 앞으로도 소프트웨어라는 것들이 이제 완벽한 것이 아니라 이제 불완전한 것이기 때문에 계속적으로 개선하고 사용자의 피처를 기반으로 해서 계속적으로 기능을 만들어 가고 있는 상황입니다. 네, 이상으로 경청해 주셔서 감사합니다.
네, 현대자동차의 한영주 박사님 감사합니다. 다음은 그 파두의 그 박상현 전문님께서 파워 옵티마이제이션 앤 스토리지 솔루션 포 AI 에라라는 주제로 키노트 발표를 해주시겠습니다. 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.
네, 안녕하십니까. OCP APEC의 기조연설을 대해서 대단히 영광입니다. 한국에서 열려서 더욱더 뜻깊은 것 같고요. AI 시대를 맞이해서 파두 같은 그동안의 작은 회사가 어떻게 OCP에 기여하고 SSD 엔터프라이즈 시장에 기여할 수 있는지 말씀을 드려보도록 하겠습니다. 그동안 SSD는 단편화되고 매우 보편적인 시장이었습니다. 하지만 AI가 도래하면서 이 시장에 많은 기회를 줬고 또한 이 시장에서 가장 주목받는 시장이 되었습니다. 과연 그렇다면 SSD는 AI 시장에서 어떠한 일을 더 할 수 있고 OCP와 환경에 더 기여할 수 있을까요? 파두는 여기에 대해서 창업 이래 계속 고민을 해왔고 여기에 대해서 기여를 어떻게 하는지에 대해서 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 말씀드린 것처럼 SSD는 AI 인프라가 진행되면서 많은 챌린지와 도전 과제를 주었습니다. 전 세계 총 전력 생산량은 제한되어 있습니다. 하지만 GPU는 계속 늘어나고 GPU는 전력적인 제한을 계속 받고 있습니다. 여기에 SSD가 과연 어떻게 또 환경적으로 제한된 전력량에서 퍼포먼스를 유지할 수 있을까요? 또한 더 많은 대용량으로 전환하면서 TCO와 쿨링적인 측면에서 베너핏을 가져갈 수 있을까요? 또 다른 과제는 AI 시장은 그동안 2년을 주기로 매우 메이저 업데이트를 해왔습니다. 거기에 따른 기능적인 측면, 또 다른 더 높은 성능을 계속 요구해 왔고요. 여기에 따른 SSD 업계는 혁신적인 AI의 요구사항에 맞춰서 전력량과 그 다음에 그 기능들에 대해서 어떻게 이노베이션을 할지 매우 고민해 왔습니다. 파두는 여기에 따른 대용량으로 전환과 전력에 대한 효율을 가지고 비즈니스 모델까지 해서 단순히 개발뿐만이 아닌 어떻게 이 시장에 진출할 수 있는지를 고민을 해왔습니다. 자, 여기서 이제 파두가 어떻게 하고 있는지를 말씀을 드려보겠습니다. 약간 지리한 내용이죠. 엔터프라이즈 SSD 시장에서는 계속 전력 효율을 강조해 왔습니다. 지금 현세대 제품 기준으로 파두 젠5 SSD 컨트롤러는 시퀀셜 및 랜덤 성능에서 경쟁사 대비 30%에서 40% 우위를 점유해 왔습니다. 이것이 파두가 인정받는 부분이고 이것을 AI 시장에서 혁신적으로 환경을 개선할 수 있는 부분에 대해서 기여해 왔습니다. 파두 SSD를 적용을 했을 때 100만 대 규모의 SSD를 설치했다고 하면 수천 대의 GPU를 추가로 설치할 수 있는 전력 효율을 가져갈 수 있게 됩니다. TCO 관점에서 말씀을 드려볼까요? SSD에서 전력 효율을 감소하게 되면 단순히 전력량만 감소하는 게 아닙니다. 쿨링을 감소함으로써 팬 소모를 줄일 수 있고 용량을 대용량하게 되면서 TCO를 전격적으로 낮출 수 있습니다. 파도 모델로 계산해 보게 되면 파도 젠5 컨트롤러를 적용했을 때 TCO가 29%까지 줄일 수 있는 예측을 할 수 있습니다. 좀 이제 지리한 내용이었으니까 전력 효율에서 다른 쪽으로 넘어가 보겠습니다. 이제 양산이 시작되는 파도 컨트롤러 젠5에 대해서 소개를 드리겠습니다. 업계에서 가장 좋은 성능, 하지만 가장 낮은 파워 퍼포먼스를 보여줍니다. 유가트 언더의 퍼포먼스에서도 컨트롤러가 16채널에도 불구하고 적은 전력을 소비하고 있고요. 이것이 아까 말씀드린 대로 파도가 업계에서 인정을 받고 OCP에서 선도적으로 스펙적인 측면이나 기능 개선에 기여하고 있는 부분입니다. 이를 바탕으로 웨스턴 디지털과 같은 회사는 웨스턴 디지털의 가장 혁신적인 SS 제품인 SN 시리즈의 파도 제품을 도입하고 같이 OCP 최신 FDP와 OCP 2.5와 NVMe 스펙을 적용해서 제품 개발을 하고 있습니다. 양산이 런칭이 됐고요. 이는 AI 시장에 많은 기여를 하게 될 걸로 예측을 하고 있습니다. 자, 그러면은 어떤 예제가 또 있을까요? FDP가 가장 큰 좋은 예가 될 수 있을 것 같습니다. 단순히 전력 효율을 하드웨어적으로 낮추는 부분 외에도 FDP를 선도적으로 파도는 적용해 왔고, 이로 인해서 심리스 인테그레이션, 즉 기존 인프라에 다른 거 변동 없이 바로 적용 설치가 가능합니다. FDP를 저희 자체적으로 평가를 해봤을 때 멀티 시퀀셜 스트림 같은 경우 4TB에는 80% 넘게, 8TB에서는 60% 넘게 스루풋을 개선했습니다. 이는 AI에서 요구하고 있는 스냅샷, 리커버리에 매우 큰 기여와 혁신을 할 수 있으며 파도 SSD 제품을 적용했을 때 OCP 제품을 바탕으로 한 AI 시장에 굉장한 큰 혁신을 가져올 수 있을 거로 믿고 있습니다. 그럼 여기서 이제 끝이 날까요? 어떻게 파도는 이런 혁신을 계속 이루어갈 수 있을까요? 파도는 계속 고민해 왔습니다. 가장 낮은 전력, 업계에서 가장 좋은 성능, 이것을 어떻게 하면 이룰 수 있을까요? 파도는 일단 기존 아키텍처에서 문제됐던 상용 IP를 모두 걷어냈습니다. 그래서 스크래치 레벨에서 다시 디자인을 했고, SSD의 근간이 되는 컨트롤러, 낸드, 디램 모든 거에 대한 스피드를 최적화했습니다. 스피드를 최적화함으로써 파워를 가장 혁신적으로 낮출 수 있었고요. 거기에 따른 효율적이고 플렉서블리티한 설계 디자인을 가져갈 수 있게 됐습니다. 설계를 자체적으로 할 수 있게 됨으로써 시장에 가장 유동적으로 빨리 런칭할 수 있게 되었고, 이게 파도의 가장 큰 장점이고 OCP와 파트너사와 앞으로 협업을 계속 해가고 싶은 분야이긴 합니다. 자, 혁신을 또 한 번 이루겠습니다. 많은 회사들이 PCI Gen 6를 준비 중입니다. 파도도 PCI Gen 6가 런칭이 되는 2025년 플랫폼들이 완성되는 시기에 맞춰서 시에라 컨트롤러를 개발하고 있습니다. 지금 개발이 거의 완료되었으며 퍼포먼스는 28기가에 육박하고 파도 기존 Gen 5 제품 대비 2배의 성능 효과를 파워 에피션시를 가지게 됩니다. 16채널에도 불구하고 파워적으로도 굉장히 퍼포먼스를 좋게 가져가고 있고, 리스크5를 기반으로 한 커스텀 아키텍처로 디자인을 했습니다. 말씀드린 것처럼 25년 하반기 내에 출시할 예정이고요. 이 또한 OCP 환경에 지대한 전력 효율로 기여할 거로 예상을 하고 있습니다. 단순히 이런 개발적인 측면, 그 다음에 혁신적인 모델링만으로 시장 런칭이 진입할 거라고 생각하지 않습니다. 그래서 파도는 그동안에 해왔던 턴키 솔루션과 ODM 솔루션, 이 부분에 그치지 않고 폐쇄적인 SSD 개발 모델을 혁신적으로 바꾸고자 합니다. 컨트롤러를 공급하는 것 외에 저희 SSD 파트너사와 저희 컨트롤러와 펌웨어, 하드웨어, 레퍼런스 SDK를 모두 제공할 예정입니다. 그래서 저희 파트너사가 SSD를 적기에 타임 투 마켓에 런칭할 수 있게 되고, SSD 제조사가 스스로 저희 코드와 SSD를 갖출 수 있게 협력할 예정입니다. 이는 바로 24년부터 사업 모델이며 젠5를 포함해서 젠6의 모든 모델의 컨트롤러 비즈니스를 전개할 예정입니다. 마지막으로 OCP에 어떻게 기여할 수 있을까요? 한국에서 이런 좋은 세션도 열리고 한국이 더욱더 어떻게 더 이 업계에서 OCP를 주도로 AI 환경에 선도를 할 수 있을까요? 파두는 세 가지 분야에서 계속 OCP에 기여를 하겠습니다. 제품적인 측면, 즉 OCP를 바탕으로 한 스펙을 선도해서 제품 확산을 하겠습니다. 두 번째, 커뮤니티, OCP 프로젝트와 행사 및 모두 지원을 하고 모두 참여를 해서 계속 파트너십을 유지하겠습니다. 마지막으로 협력 분야, OCP 기반 혁신은 계속 일어나길 바랍니다. 단순한 PCI Gen 6로의 확장이 아니라 차세대 CXL과 파워 솔루션 모두 기반으로 SSD 및 OCP 파트너사와 함께 개발을 혁신하고 사업 모델을 유지하도록 하겠습니다. OCP에 참여해 주셔서 감사합니다.
All right, thank you, Mr. Park. So one of the things that I think is the most exciting about events like this, especially since Open Infra is co-locating with OCP, is how much collaboration is going to happen this week. Open collaboration is one of the key processes that makes open source software work in production. So our next presentation is going to be showing some collaboration between the OpenStack and Ocean-Base community. So please join me in welcoming Kendall Nelson.
안녕하세요. I am Kendall Nelson. I'm a senior upstream developer advocate at the Open Infrastructure Foundation. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to the event. So, in order to build the next decade of open infra, we need a healthy, collaboration-focused community. How better to focus on collaboration than to make connections with other open source communities to share knowledge and integrate with each other's projects? We started noticing patterns in reported usage years ago, centering around a stack making use of Kubernetes and Linux alongside OpenStack. Delving deeper, we discovered that many users prefer this top-to-bottom open source stack, and even better, that these communities started collaborating back then to ensure interoperability between our projects and communities today. This collaboration has resulted in a rich set of capabilities and integration patterns that a subset of our community recently collaborated on to better understand and publish. So a very special thank you to all who contributed and participated in this endeavor, including many of our members and other members of our open infrastructure community. We're very excited to share this exploration with you in the form of our Open Infrastructure Blueprint white paper. Please scan the QR code, check it out, share it with all your colleagues and followers. I'll be tweeting another link right after I get off stage here. Kubernetes and Linux are actually only two communities that we collaborate with in a long list of other open source communities. Recently, we at the Foundation learned of an open source database project that looks very promising and like an excellent scalable solution that is also highly available to meet OpenStack's needs. So since we all love data, here is a glimpse of reported usage from our 2023 user survey. You can see that there's a variety of solutions, and many of them actually require additional plugins or support to make them usable at scale. So here today, we have Long Defeng from Ant Group, a developer of the open source project Ocean-Base, to show us what it's all about.
Hi, Kendall. Thanks for your introduction. I'm Longda. It's an honor to be here. As we all know, OpenStack is the most deployed open source cloud software in the world. At the same time, Ocean-Base is one open source distributed database for mission critical load at any scale. We wish we can work together to provide our customer a win-win solution. Maybe many of us have no idea about Ocean-Base. Let me give a brief introduction. Ocean-Base is the only database which broke the world record in TPCC and TPC Edge. In 2020, Ocean-Base achieved 707 million TPMC in TPCC benchmark. The score is 20 times than that of Oracle. It's the first time to run TPCC with a distributed database. In 2021, OceanBase obtained 15 million QPH in TPCH. At that time, break the world record. Till now, there are more than 1,000 customers choose OceanBase. Among of these customers, they are from financial, telecom, government, manufacture, internet, and so on. Among of these users, Ant Group is the biggest one. On 2019 Double 11 Festival, the peak query per second is almost 61 million. The biggest database is more than 6 petabyte. What's more, the RPO is 0 or TO is less than 8 hours. From the OpenStack side, we can find the database as well. We almost find the database almost in every module. Database store metadata. Metadata is vital to a whole system. If the database crash, the system is hard to work. So, how to provide 7/24-hour uninterrupted service? Today, we were going to give a demo show to how to provide high availability, and when node is done, at the same time, how to automatically recover. Okay, let's log in the OceanBase dashboard to check the cluster status. Right now, every node are healthy. We can find out the observer's service. Then we check the talent. We will find out which zone is the primary zone. Because later we will delete the node, the pod in the primary zone to check out the availability. Layer 2, a proxy. Proxy is just used to routing the request. Okay. Before we delete the pod in the primary zone, okay, we can check the OpenStack cluster status. We found everything is fine. The clusters are healthy. Before we going to delete the pod, we will disable Kubernetes auto recovery. Through disable auto recovery, we can check the high availability because currently the cluster just have 2 nodes, not 3 nodes. Okay. We check the OpenStack status. We will create one ECS. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, the ECS has been successfully created. Now we enable the Kubernetes auto recovery. We check the status. We will find the server status has been changed. We refresh the status. In fact, it will take no more than 8 seconds. We're auto recovery. So let me summarize this demo. OceanBase keep strong, consistent by Paxos consensus protocol. If any node is down, the majority nodes are alive. The left node will take over everything.
It's so cool to see how it just works, and it works fast. So to summarize a little bit what we saw, obviously a node went down. Usually, without a distributed database, there would be some issue for the user, but that didn't happen. And having played with this myself, I know that it just works. It really is that easy. There's so much potential here in a collaboration between the OpenStack community and OceanBase. And upcoming at the project teams gathering in October, we welcome any adjacent open source community like OceanBase, right? OceanBase is coming?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to attend this meeting. Next.
Yeah.
In fact, OceanBase can do more for the OpenStack. If you are interested in this topic, please follow my presentation in this afternoon at room 205. Next. Here is our Slack QR code. Welcome to our community. Anyone are welcome.
Yeah. And in addition, we want to give a special thanks to Hongshin Sun at Ant Group and Michael Ness at Stack HPC for helping with the demo today as well. 감사합니다.
Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 다음 키노트는 AMD의 부사장님이신 로버트 휴모스키님께서 퓨처 오브 AI 네트워크란 주제로 발표를 해주시겠습니다. 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.
Good morning. First, thanks for the opportunity to come speak this morning at this great turnout of this OCP event in Suwon. I'm Robert Hormuth. I head up the advanced architecture and strategy at AMD for our long-term kind of architectures and planning of where we're heading in the future. And what I want to talk today about is the future of AI networks. A lot of problems have been highlighted today, this morning, my colleagues, about the challenge of AI. How are we going to scale the power, the cooling, the network size, the pod size, the domain-specific architectures. And I want to share what the industry is doing, and then how it ties back to OCP and how we can collaborate to drive innovation to drive this to the market faster. So to get started, I don't think it's a big surprise. We've all heard about AI. We've been operating in kind of a two-mode model in the past 20 years, where we've had general-purpose computing using general-purpose CPUs, and we've had these domain-specific architectures to solve HPC, really about simulation, climate modeling, weather prediction, cancer research, very accurate type of computing. And with the wave of AI, though, it's created a whole new domain-specific architecture requirement that is on your left. And this is where we're trading off accuracy, we're trading off precision and accuracy for speed. And so we're creating a whole new set of AI type of accelerators that are a new domain-specific architecture. And so it's good, but it presents a set of challenges. We've been building HPC machines for a long time. We have a HPC, a top 500 list, and the top 10, and they're fairly bespoke machines. With the world of AI, though, we need a lot more of those machines to go out a lot faster. We don't have 18 months to stand up the next world's exaflop machine. We have to advance the technology for everybody sooner. And so AI is driving really unique challenges for networking. Large-scale AI requirements require scaling out. How do we get a lot of pods of GPUs or accelerators connected together? And it's also driving a requirement for scale up. How do we get more accelerators talking, sharing data, sharing parameters within a pod? And so we have to address both the scale up and the scale out perspective for networking if we're going to really advance AI quickly and drive innovation. And there's a lot of challenges, as have been talked about this morning, right? The AI model sizes are growing. I think Meta is 500 million or 500 billion parameters or something like that, and we're heading towards 1 trillion. I get this question asked all the time. Where's enough parameters? Where do we stop? And I quit trying to guess, And I just tell everybody now, once we have all the parameters, we'll stop. So that means the models are going to keep growing. There's a lot of papers out there that say the number of parameters keep growing, keep making our AI better. But that puts a lot of pressure on networking, the accelerators. And so the industry needs some open industry initiatives to go solve some of these problems, both from a scale up and a scale out. Where in a scale up, this might be where you have, 10, 50, 100, 1,000, accelerators operating together within a pod in a shared memory kind of architecture. But then we have to figure out how do we connect all those pods together, where we may have hundreds of thousands of GPUs across tens of thousands of pods. And so the industry has been trying to figure out how to go do this. Well, we're missing a slide. Well, what this slide's supposed to show is a group of industry veterans, AMD, Intel, Meta, Microsoft, Google, Broadcom, Cisco, HPE, got together to form the Ultra Accelerator Link Consortium, which is going to go try and tackle the problem of scale up. How do we create a network for scale up in an industry way so that we can create an open ecosystem? And so what the UA Link does is it creates this open ecosystem for scale up. Again, this is how GPU to GPUs are going to communicate. And it's an open model in that, if you look at GPU to GPU today, it's very memory semantic. And so we wanted an open architecture that stays in the load store memory semantic domain. And, we wanted to make it open. And so the promoter group is getting together right now, that group of 8. And we hope to have open membership by the end of this year so that we can open up to the wider community. Now, what does UA Link do? Again, it's an interconnect for scale-up architecture, so GPU to GPU within a pod. It's a direct load store memory semantic. It's very lightweight, very energy efficient, very low latency, very low power, because it's optimized for this particular model. And so it's very complementary to the other networks that are out there, because this, again, is for that accelerator-to-accelerator connection. And so if you dive in a little bit deeper, what does a UA Link ecosystem or architecture look like? It looks like a rack scale architecture where we have your traditional CPU host, your accelerators, and then you have this an open ecosystem of ultra accelerator switches. And what we're addressing here is really that low latency stack around the protocol, the transaction layer, the link, and the physical layer. And it's targeted to be low power. It's very silicon optimized to only address the problem that we need to address with GPUs. So it doesn't carry a lot of tax at the silicon area. And that allows us to make a low latency switch. There'll be different, a number of different switch vendors that may make anything from a low radix switch to a high radix switch, depending on the target market that they're going after. But it's important that they'll be able to there'll be an ecosystem. And again, at the die area, because we've kept it simple, it's very low. It's much lower silicon millimeter area than like PCIe or CXL. It's significantly smaller, so that helps us drive bigger radix switches, lower cost, and lower power at low latency. And so, that's how we're going to do the scale up. Now the question is, well, what about the scale out? That gets me to a couple, 1,000, accelerators, maybe 4,000 someday in a pod. But what do we do about the scale out? How do I connect these pods? And the industry got together, I don't know, almost 18 months ago maybe, on the effort around the Ultra Ethernet Consortium to go address the needs of this next generation network for both AI and HPC. And so this organization has actually been running for a while now. It's in full bore. It's under the Linux Foundation. It's one of the fastest growing projects in the Linux Foundation. We have over 70 plus member companies, 800 plus individuals working, tackling everything from the physical layer to the link to the transport, software, telemetry, debug, compliance. So we're trying to make Ethernet suitable for AI for all. It's important that we be able to build and roll these systems out fast and efficiently. And so the member list keeps growing, and we've got great participation. And I think you'll start to see some of the first pre-UEC products probably start to come out next year that incorporate many of the attributes of Ultra Ethernet. And again, the goals of UEC is to tackle and use standard Ethernet, but enhance it in a way that addresses the needs for AI and HPC. And so we had to drive in and address some of the electrical, some of the link level, some of the congestion management, some of the packet spraying, telemetry, things that you need to address in a large-scale network. And if you kind of look at it and just compare to what we have today in terms of Ultra Ethernet versus the traditional, RDMA-based, the things that we're addressing on the right. We're addressing the whole out-of-order packet delivery with in-order message completion. We're addressing, the security. It's designed with security from the get-go. We talked about the data sovereignty earlier. Security is going to be paramount. With the algorithms that are occurring in the AI world, addressing the packet spraying, to be able to route around congestion and obstacles is very important. Looking at how we do congestion management, and so we've included both sender and receive-based congestion management as part of the Ultra Ethernet specification. And we've got other things that are built in to help on tuning and targeting, again, this large scale, 1 million kind of node endpoints that with today's Ethernet and other options are either proprietary or they're very, it's a house of cards sometimes to build a large scale Ethernet network that can become very fragile. And so when we put the two together, though, we look at it, and in the world of AI moving forward, the future is going to be Ultra. We're going to have Ultra Ethernet and Ultra Accelerator Link. That Ultra Accelerator Link will be within that pod to help you interconnect, GPUs or accelerators or anybody's accelerators to an open ecosystem of Ultra Accelerator Link switches. And then you'll have your back end and your front end networks or your scale out network with Ultra Ethernet. And again, that will open up the ecosystem for switch vendors and NIC vendors that can be compatible with the Ultra Ethernet ecosystem. And so the question then is, well, this sounds great, but how does this apply to OCP? This is where we have to bring it all together in OCP. So these specifications help us with the protocols, the routing, the software. It doesn't address the whole end-to-end nature of AI, where we have to really address from silicon to the server, to the rack, to the data center, because the unit of compute in AI is moving more to the right. It's moving to that data center view. And so we have to drive that innovation from end to end across that silicon, software, and the systems perspective in an open way. And so OCP intercepts all of that. And so, my call to action for this audience today at OCP is, the UA Link Consortium is addressing, that scale up. It's going to create that open ecosystem for switches and accelerators. The initial specification is going to be targeting to coming out by the end of this year, maybe early January. It starts out at 200 gigabits a second in terms of the link-to-link. And so, that will be an opportunity for this audience to join. So we'll be opening up membership later this year in the Q4 timeframe. And then on the UEC or the Ultra Ethernet, it's a big project. There's a lot of people playing. Participate, join. It's already open. It's in the Linux Foundation. And it's going to address that massive scale of, putting millions of endpoints together. And so we anticipate that specification to be available. There's about 8 different specifications that make up Ultra Ethernet. We expect that combined integrated spec to be available later this year as well. And in terms of OCP now is the time for us in OCP to think about projects, switches, cables, cooling. How do we bring these chips and the ecosystem together within OCP to go define the next generation of infrastructure that is required to drive AI forward? So I want to thank you for the time, and please get involved in UEC and UA Link, and I look to see you soon at the next OCP Summit. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I really enjoyed that presentation because it was another great example of open collaboration from the hardware perspective. So we can see that formula really works to drive innovation forward. So our next presentation, Mark alluded to this earlier, but there's been a lot of challenges with some of the changes that VMware has introduced over the past year. So to provide a live demo on how to migrate a workload from VMware to OpenStack, please join me in welcoming Rico Lin and Jimmy MacArthur.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you. Very happy to be here. So, as Allison mentioned, and Mark alluded to in his keynote earlier, Broadcom acquired VMware. So what? Well, when I first heard about this back in 2023, I knew this was going to be a big deal, but I could have never imagined the type of position this acquisition has put VMware customers and partners in. And it's created a situation where people need to move off of VMware to another virtualization platform, and they need to do it soon. So that's a big problem, right? But I see it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity and it's a moment for us to work together with the OpenStack ecosystem, the OpenInfra ecosystem, and help educate the market and reintroduce or introduce for the first time OpenStack as not just comparable, but a superior virtualization solution with no vendor lock-in. It's cost-effective, it's flexible. With that in mind, we got together with the members of the OpenInfra Foundation, and we put together a VMware migration working group. And the purpose of this is really to help suss out how features compare from VMware to OpenStack, what's lacking, what's missing, how the ecosystem can kind of rise to the occasion to meet those changes that are going to be necessary in the market. And if you're interested, your organization is interested in joining us, you can go to openinfra.dev/join. But one of the primary concerns for all organizations is migration. How do I get from VMware to OpenStack? With that in mind, I'm very excited to introduce Rico Lin from VexHost, who's going to talk to us about MigrateKit, which is a pure open source solution developed by VexHost. Rico, all you.
Cool. Thanks, Jimmy. Can we change the screen?
Oh, can we do the demo?
Okay, cool. Let me zoom it up a little bit.
This is all live, so cross your fingers.
Yeah, cross the finger. Okay, better. Okay, as you can see, this is a standard VMware host. And on top, I have Jimmy's top secret list inside, which Jimmy got 1 giga secrets at the very standard Linux server. So, Jimmy, do you think we should move your secrets to OpenStack?
I'm ready to move to OpenStack. I couldn't be more ready.
Okay, you're the boss. That's your secret. So running with MigrateKit is pretty simple in this demo. So there's just 2 commands. One is to migrate, the other is to cut over. Let's do the first one now, and I can explain. So the migrate command, as you can see in front, that I already input the credentials for the OpenStack clouds. The migrate command directly check if there's any copies of your VMware VMs. You do a snapshot and do a full copy. Once the full copy is done, you will move your VM snapshot into OpenStack volumes. So you will be able to see that in the OpenStack later. Make sure you do have the VMware disk development kit installed so you can run the command. If any of the commands that you don't know, I mean the 2 commands look pretty long, you can go to our GitHub. The not just open source, but we also have very quick explain how you can use this this tool. And also, when you're using the Migrate Kit, the most recommended way would be to using Docker like this, because you don't have to care about other dependencies. Okay, so now the migrate is complete. Let's go back to our OpenStack clouds. If I refresh it, I hope it's there. Okay.
Hey!
Hey! Wait, that's not the end. We just moved the snapshot. Okay, so the snapshot is there. At least Jimmy's secret is there. So Jimmy, shall we adding more secrets? Because I know Jimmy personally, and I know he got a lot of secrets. So
That's true. No, that's not true.
yeah, so there's like 80 more secrets. Now people might do, so you can do like multiple migrates to do multiple times. So your data can consist between your VMwares and your OpenStack. Now this time again, we run the exactly same command, migrate. What you're going to do, if you check closely, this time it do incremental backup. And the incremental backup will only focus on that mostly 1 gigabyte secrets that we just put in. And so you're going to be way faster. And for this incremental, once this completed, like the full copy as well, it will remove the snapshot. So there is no redundant or extra data left in your cluster. So the Jimmy top secrets now is up to date with all the secrets we have. So Jimmy, again, you want to move to OpenStack? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think he's worried about his secrets. That's okay.
I feel like everyone knows my secret now.
Okay, so now we do cut over. Now, cut over, you have to also care about, you need to make sure the MAC from your VMs is mapping to the network in the OpenStack. From the scratch this time, you will do another incrementals just to make sure that your data is synced before you start to do the next step. You see, as this time we don't add any data. Incremental goes very fast, and it shuts down your VMs in your VMware cluster. So one single VM is down, and it do another incremental backups to make sure that all the data will move to OpenStack. Now, if there is like if this like small downtime is not you don't want a small downtime for API service, you can also set up the load balancer or any kind of network jumping services to make sure both of your clusters are connected for this short time. And now you're trying to convert your images into KVMware with V2V, Vert V2V. Funny to say that the Migrate Kit at the first, we just think it would be nice to have this because we think it would be nice to have open source solutions. So this is just open source solutions and nothing funky about that.
And this is actually in production right now. You're using it for your customers?
Yes. So yeah, this is very serious in production. Like, so if you guys remember Geico, the huge companies that Mark just talked about, and there's also the other Paramorex, also a huge company. So they both. So we install OpenStack Clouds with another open source project called Atmosphere, and with that install OpenStack and use the OpenStack to migrate with Migrate Kit. So from their VMware, using Migrate Kit to their OpenStack clouds.
Awesome.
That's what happens when you do live.
Well, these things happen.
Yeah.
We can recover, I believe.
Yeah. Like we do multiple times, and there's one time it fail. Well, so you're gonna restart it again and do a full copy.
We need to start again?
Yeah, I mean it. So I think I accidentally do the disk delete this time.
Okay, well, in the meantime, we can talk about some other things happening. If you happen to be in the marketplace, we do have, and I've got a couple slides coming up, but Z-Converter is in the marketplace, and we have talks by both cloud-based solutions, Z-Converter, and Okestro on these things, on VMware migration and the work that they're doing with their customers. So it's not just MigrateKit, but many other open solutions for VMware migration. And also, you can check out our white paper that is published on our website. How are we doing, Rico?
Yeah, so yeah, still do a full copy.
This is why live demos are fun.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for you.
And just for the record, we do this like hundreds of times before the keynote. Then.
Okay. We'll give it one more second, and then if not, we will post the video of the demo on our website so that everybody can take a look at it, as well as a link to the GitHub repository where you can download the open source version of MigrateKit. All right, so I think, can we go back to the slides? Oh, even the recorded slides aren't working. Help.
And by the way, even with the volume in the OpenStack got deleted, the VM in your VMware will not be touched by MigrateKit. It just shut down there. And actually, I did run this time successfully. Can we switch back to my channel?
Oh,
so yeah, I just don't like people see like.
Okay, well, I think we can post it online later.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we've got Coriolis and Z-Converter, which are two other solutions if you're looking to migrate your VMware workloads. And you can also see the companies that participated, as well as the VMware white paper on our website. And we've got some sessions coming up, including a panel featuring our executive director, Jonathan Bryce, with Rico as well, and some folks from Viatel, Rackspace, and Huawei. So make sure you check out this session, along with these three other sessions from our foundation members, including Okestro, our new platinum member. So thank you very much, and I appreciate your patience as we attempted a demo. I'm Jimmy MacArthur. This is Rico Lin, and if you're looking for us, that's our LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jimmy. Thanks, Rico. Sorry that the demo gods may not have been on our side today. So earlier, Mark talked about the exponential growth for the OpenStack market, and one of the signals that we had in the past 2 months is that Mirantis came back as a gold member of the Open Infra Foundation, really showing their support for the OpenStack project. So please welcome Randy Bias.
Howdy. Thank you, Allison. So it's great to be here today. It's interesting. I'm going to break a couple of rules today. First is doing a keynote in such a short period of time, so you have to hang tough with me. And the second is using video in a presentation, which I've never done before. So, little known fact, this is not my first time doing a keynote in Korea. It's actually my second. The first time was in 2011 for Korea Telecom, when they launched KTU Cloud, which was the first public cloud in Korea, which I architected and built. And during that time, when I was doing public speaking, I was really talking about these three major eras in computing. So we've seen, in my opinion, three major platform shifts. There was the advent of the computer to begin with in the mainframe era. Then we went to enterprise computing, or what I call client server. And then after that, we went to cloud computing. And each time we had these massive shifts, these changes in the architecture, in the operational model, in the development model, in the application delivery model. Each time, there's these significant shifts, about every 20 to 25 years. So I was talking about this for, I don't know, years and years and years. But the first time I did was here in Korea at that keynote in 2011. So I think we're entering into this fourth era, what I call autonomous computing. And what's happened is we've already figured out how to scale up. We figured out how to scale out. We figured out how to automate everything. We figured out how to put APIs on everything. We've kind of evolved information technology to the point that we've come to now, where we can take something like artificial intelligence and wrap it around all of those pieces and create an abstraction layer that allows us to basically do something new and meaningful in information technology. So I'll let you read that. That's my definition of autonomic or autonomous computing. So the key here is that things have changed with the advent of certain kinds of control points and APIs. What do I mean by a control point? I mean like a control plane, right? When you go to Amazon Web Services, you have a way to manage everything. Your networks, your security, your load balancing, your storage, your compute instances, your Kubernetes, whatever it is, right? It's one big gigantic control plane, and you have an API that plugs into it, and that allows you to drive everything. It's the same when you go to OpenStack. You've got the OpenStack APIs. You can drive the storage. You can drive the networking. You can drive all the instances and so on. So this gives us a unique opportunity, right? We can sort of end the dirty work. We can create the ability to have co-pilots, AI-based co-pilots that can basically take care of setting up infrastructure for us, for deploying applications, take away all the dirty work. And we see that with developer tools as well. So I'm going to show you a demo, not live, where I've got a one-shot English prompt using a tool called Clio, which is based off of GPT-Script from Acorn Labs. And what this tool will do, it will take that English language, and it will figure out how to drive OpenStack. We're not telling it anything about OpenStack that it doesn't already know. It knows about OpenStack. It's read the documentation. It's got instructions about how to go there to the website for OpenStack and actually download the documentation and use it to drive the deployment of a bunch of instances, to set up the security groups, the networking, the floating IPs, the storage, all of the pieces, and then to automatically deploy a Kubernetes distribution on top of it. So this is the prompt. I'm not going to walk through it. It's just simple English. Anybody can do this. You don't have to be an operator. But if you're an operator, you know what it means. And this is what we're going to feed into Clio. And it's going to be smart enough to actually see when it makes mistakes, and I'll call that out, and to correct itself. All right, let's go. All right, so there's the prompt. And so it takes that prompt and it talks to ChatGPT, and it comes up with a strategy and a plan. So now it's got a 12-step plan that it's going to go through to basically talk to OpenStack cluster, to start sequencing up instances, configuring them, and validating them. So there, it missed. It couldn't find Ubuntu 24. It ran the wrong command. It figures out how to run the correct command. Boom, gets the correct list of images from OpenStack. Starts spinning up the instances using Ubuntu 24. And it's figuring this all out on its own. It figures out if it makes a mistake, it automatically corrects it, moves on. And there's no real operator intervention unless it has a problem. And then it asks the operator, how do I fix this? OK, so it's brought up all the instances. And now it's SSHing into them. It's trying to verify that they're up and available and ready to take Kubernetes with the Mirantis K0's distribution. OK, now it's configuring K0s. Again, it made a mistake in how to use K0s, but it figures it out. It corrects itself, which is amazing. And then it makes the correct default K0's YAML, K0's control YAML file. Now it's taking the information that it has about the IP addresses for all the instances that have been spun up on OpenStack, and it's going to rewrite that default, right, the default, and see it's rewriting it with the correct IP addresses. Now it's figuring this all out itself from that simple English language prompt, right? So it's pretty amazing. And this is all happening in about 7 minutes. So from running the beginning of the script to the end, you've got a Kubernetes cluster up and running on OpenStack in 7 minutes flat. It doesn't matter if it's 5 instances, 10 instances, 100 instances, it's the same. So K0s is being installed here. It's going through the process of basically going out to each of those nodes via SSH, making sure that it can install K0s. And now it's going to run kubeconfig to basically make sure that the cluster is there. All right, so the cluster's there. And then at the end, the operator who doesn't know anything about Kubernetes, they're a newbie, first it gets a summary, and then the operator says, hey, show me all my pods in plain English. And the AI figures that out. So this is what's amazing, right? Like the platform change that's happening right now with operations, with development, is less about making some kind of big leap in terms of how we think architecturally about compute systems. It's more about taking everything that we've built to this date and putting an abstraction layer around it, being able to drive everything via APIs, being able to have these places where, whether it's OpenStack, whether it's a private cloud or a public cloud, whether it's Kubernetes, whether it's VMware, it doesn't matter what it is, there's these ubiquitous control points where everywhere we look, there's something that controls our infrastructure, and that something has an API into it, and then we have AI that can figure out how to manage and control all of those systems via those control points and those APIs. So that's it. That's all I had for today, and thank you very much.
네, 이로써 오늘 첫째 날 키노트를 모두 마치도록 하겠습니다. 오늘 그 연사로 나와주신 모든 분들께 다시 한번 박수를 부탁드리겠습니다. 감사합니다. 잠깐 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 지금 참가자분들이 많으셔서 한꺼번에 나가면은 굉장히 안전사고가 발생할 수 있으니 순서대로 조심해서 나가주시기 바랍니다. 그리고 밀 쿠폰을 지금 드렸는데 그 웹사이트에 보시면은 밀 쿠폰을 사용할 수 있는 레스토랑 안내가 있습니다. 그 레스토랑에 가셔서 밀 쿠폰을 사용해 주시면 되고, 다시 한번 강조드리면은 뭐 환불이나 반환은 안 됩니다. 또 잊어버리지 않도록 조심해 주시기 바랍니다. 그 레스토랑 방문을 해야 돼서 저희가 점심시간을 충분히 두었습니다. 2시간의 여유를 두고 프로그램을 준비했으니까 2시까지 오셔가지고 브레이크아웃 세션을 참여해 주시면 될 것 같습니다. 마지막으로 그 통역기 관련해서 안내드리겠습니다. 들어오는 입구에 그 통역기 데스크가 있습니다. 가져오고 오신 통역기를 데스크에 반납해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 감사합니다.